Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If this is your first time on my channel, I am Sonia, aka PatrickStarrr Philly. Welcome, and I hope that y'all enjoyed today's video. So today I'm going to show you guys how to do natural makeup. This is what my natural makeup routine looks like. This would be very suitable for going to work, going to school, going to church. If you're just running out on the weekends and you don't want to do too much. You can also use this if you wanted something that was a more like glamorous look. You could also use this and build on top of it. So I'm going to show you guys how I created this look, and I'm going to go through explaining to you why I use the products that I use. So let's jump into it. Okay, I have moisturizer and lip balm on, so I'm going to go right in with my base products. So when I'm picking the base products, which is my foundation and my concealer, I'm using products that are going to give me just enough coverage. So I'm not using anything that's going to give me more coverage than I need, because I do want my makeup to look as skin-like as possible today. So I'm starting out with my concealer. I like putting my under eye concealer on first before I do my foundation. So for concealer, I'm using the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, and this one is in the color Chestnut. I actually used to use this concealer every single day, and then I switched over to MAC Pro Longwear, but I'm using this NARS concealer today because it's not quite as full coverage as the MAC concealer, but it still does give me a good amount of coverage. So I'm just putting this on my under eye, and I'm concentrating it right on the areas where I have my bags. And I'm going to let that sit on my under eye area for a little bit, and then I'm going to go in with my foundation. For foundation, I'm using the Too Faced Born This Way, and I'm in the color Maple. To me, this is like the most skin-like concealer that I have, or skin-like foundation that I have. So I'm going to put maybe like a pump and a half on each cheek. I think I'm gonna put just a little bit more. And I'm gonna be blending that out with a damp beauty sponge. Sometimes I do use a dry sponge because dry sponges will give you fuller coverage, but for today I'm using a damp sponge so that the sponge will soak up a little bit more of the product and not deposit too much product on my face. I would rather have to go in with another layer if I feel like I don't have enough product on, as opposed to putting on too much product. So I like blending this out on my cheeks first because that's where I have the most hyperpigmentation. And then I'm going to hit my nose and my forehead. I like using only residual product on my nose and my forehead because I get pretty oily in those areas. So I want minimal product right there to help prevent my skin from getting oily. And then I'm just blending this out until I feel like I have even coverage everywhere. And I'm dragging it down on my neck just a little bit so that it blends in and there's not a harsh line on my jawline. Now I still do have a little bit of hyperpigmentation peeking through, but for me this is fine. This level of coverage is good enough for me, but you would obviously build it up if you wanted more coverage. Okay, now I'm going to take a foundation sponge and I'm going to lightly blend out my under eye concealer. And I'm bringing that on the sides of my nose. I'm also dragging it out. I'm dragging it out and up a little bit to give my face that lifted effect. And then I'm also going to take what's left on the brush and I'm going to very lightly hit my eyelid to try and brighten up that area too. I'm also going to take what's left on the brush and I'm going to very lightly hit the center of my forehead, just to very lightly brighten that area as well. Alright, some of you guys may be able to skip this next step, but I hope you can see that even though I put some under eye concealer on, the concealer did brighten this area up, but I have very prominent bags under my eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another concealer that's very, very slightly darker than my skin tone. I'm using the Urban Decay Naked Skin Weightless Complete Coverage Concealer. This one is in the color Dark Golden. So the undertone isn't the best for me, but it's really the only concealer that I have that's just a little bit darker than my skin tone. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a very little bit of that and I'm gonna dab it right on the areas of my under eye that are coming out, that are, I guess I should say, protruding out. And I'm gonna take, this is the e.l.f. C eyeshadow brush, but I call it my concealer brush because the only thing I use it for is concealer. And I'm gonna very lightly blend that concealer right on top of that eye bag. And because I used a color that's slightly darker than my skin tone, this is going to help like make that area of my under eye kind of fall back and just not look as prominent. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of my NARS concealer and I'm going to put it right in the crevice where, like right underneath that eye bag. So I'm using a darker concealer on the parts of my eye that are protruding out to make them fall back, and then I'm using a concealer that's lighter than that. So let me show you guys the concealer side by side. I'm using the lighter concealer directly under the bag to help bring those parts of my face forward a little bit. And I'm gonna go over that area one more time. If you guys don't have bags under your eye, or if they're not as bad as mine, then you can just skip this step, obviously. So now I'm going to put a little bit of highlighter on. Normally I would do highlighter after I do like my blush and my eyeshadow and all of that, because I would normally use a powder highlighter. Today I'm using a liquid highlighter, so I want to put that on now so that I can put it on before I set my face with a powder. I'm using a liquid highlighter because I do think that they look more skin-like than the powder highlighters. So I'm using the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Glotion. This one is in the color Light, and this one has a very like pink or like rose pink tone to it. So I'm just going to put, let me show you guys what the color looks like before I put it on my face. I'm gonna put just a little bit of that on the high parts of both of my cheeks and a little bit down the center of my nose. I'm gonna take a clean side of the sponge and I'm just gonna very lightly dab that and blend it out on the high parts of my cheek. And this gives like a very subtle, natural, kind of like that glow from within type of look. I'm putting a little bit more over here. Now I'm gonna go in and set my face, and I'm using the MAC PatrickStarrr powder. I don't have a whole lot of setting powders in my collection. I probably have like 5, but out of all the ones that I have, this one is the most like finely milled, and it's the most, it's like the softest powder that I have. So again, everything that I'm using today, I'm using things that are gonna give me like a skin-like finish. So I'm gonna be using a fluffy brush for this, and I'm just dabbing it into the powder, and I'm just gonna set my entire face with it. I'm actually not gonna set around my hairline because I am gonna go in and put another powder up there. Next, I'm gonna do my brows. I'm gonna show you guys how I do one of my brows on camera, and then I'll skip through the other one. I'm using the BH Cosmetics Studio Pro HD Brow Pencil in Ebony. Hope you guys can see that. I'm using this one because it has a very fine tip to it, so it makes it a lot easier to create like hair-like strokes. So what I'm gonna do is use the brush part of it. I'm combing through my brows in an upward and outward motion. Then I'm going to take the pencil side of it, and I'm just going to very lightly pencil in all of the sparse areas of my brow. I like starting right at the arch and then working my way back toward my tail. And I feel like I can never get the tail part of my brow to look right, but I just do the best that I can. And I'm also trying to always draw up and never draw down, so that I won't accidentally like drag my whole eye area down. I'm just trying to draw like in the same direction that the hair is naturally growing. When I get toward the front of the brow, I like to draw straight up. And then I'm going to comb through the brows one more time. This will make them look just a little bit neater. I'm going to see if I can get rid of that little tiny part of the tail because I feel like it's dragging down too much. Alright, I'm never completely satisfied with my brows, but for the most part, that's what I do. So I'm going to skip through and do the other one off camera. Okay, my other brow is done. Now I'm going to go and set the brows, and I'm using the ColourPop Brow Boss gel. This gel is kind of thick, and I think it's a little difficult to blend. That's what the product looks like. So what I like doing is putting it in my finger like this, and I like rubbing it together to try and like soften it a little bit. And I like to dab it on my brow very lightly so that I'm not picking up too much of the product. And then I like to just very lightly comb back through the brows to try and blend the product in. Every time I try to put that product directly on the brow, it pulls off too much of the product. Next, I'm using the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder. This is in the color Dark, and I'm going to use this as kind of like a bronzer, but I guess you could say maybe like a bronzer slash contour. This is what the powder looks like. I hope you guys can see the color. It runs kind of red, so I feel like it helps to like give my skin like a little glow. And when I'm doing like a natural look, I would prefer to bronze over contour, even though bronzing and contouring are two different things. So bronzing is going to give your skin like a subtle, like soft glow, whereas contouring is going to help you kind of like chisel out or accentuate shadows on your face. So I feel like bronzing is more suitable for a more like natural looking look, because it's gonna give you like some dimension to your face, but it's not gonna give you like that like sharp chiseled contoured look. So I'm gonna use the same fluffy brush that I used to set my entire face, and I'm just going to blend some of this powder out on my forehead. And I do it very lightly just so that it's not overpowering. And I'm taking some more and I'm gonna squish the brush together like this. I just don't have a brush that's shaped like this. And I'm going to lightly bronze my cheeks. So if I were to contour my cheeks, I would contour right here on the hollows of my cheeks. I'm gonna put the bronzer right above where I would be contouring. And once I get the product on, I'm just gonna very lightly blend it out. And you just want to make sure that you're not putting the bronzer on top of your highlight so that that can still show through. And I'm going to put a little bit of this along my jawline also. Now for today's look, I'm not going to put any of this on my nose. Normally I would, but I feel like since I put the highlighter on the center of my nose, I feel like that kind of created a contour on the sides too. So since I'm going for a softer natural look, I'm just going to leave the nose the way that it is for today. Next, I'm going to use some blush, and today I'm using the Pacifica Duo blush, and I'm using this color here. I apologize, I can't remember the name of this color, but I'll have it in the description bar. Normally I would use a blush that has more of like a peachy, almost like a corally tone, but I do feel like that gives my skin more of like a flush of color. This one gives me a flush of color, but it's very subtle. So I'm gonna take my e.l.f. powder brush. It's a flat brush to apply this. And I'm gonna be putting the blush kind of, it's gonna be hard to place it, but it's gonna go right in between the highlighter and the hollows of my cheeks. So it is gonna end up falling on top of that bronzer powder that I put on, but that's fine because the bronzer powder is also kind of sort of chiseling out my face, even though I haven't used it as a contour. The blush is being used to give my face like a more of like a flush of color. So they are going to end up blending in to one another, but that's fine. And again, you just want to make sure that you're not putting the blush on top of your highlight. I'm just going to put a little bit more on this cheek. Okay, I'm going to go back into this powder here, and I'm going to use a fluffy blending eyeshadow brush. I'm gonna take just a little bit of that powder onto the brush, and I'm just gonna use that to give my eyes a little bit of dimension. So all I'm doing is placing that powder straight across my crease and down toward the outer corner of my eye. And that's it. That's all I'm doing for my eyes today. If you wanted to, you could put another color on your lid, but I'm just gonna stop there for the eyes, except for doing just a little bit of highlight in my inner corner. I'm gonna use the L'Oreal True Match Lumi Powder Glow Illuminator. This one is in the color N202 Rose. So this one is the one that's for neutral undertones. I have a cool undertone and I like this one for my skin type. So this is what it looks like. This does come in warm and cool, but I like this one because it has the pink hues to it. So I'm going to use just a little small blending brush, or a small pencil brush, and I'm going to go in with this color here, and I'm going to use that to highlight my tear duct. I'm using this because it's matte. You can go in with a shimmery color, but I feel like if you use a matte, it's gonna look a little bit more natural. So I'm just placing that right on my inner corner. This color actually has a little bit more shimmer than I thought, but it's not too shimmery, which is fine. But I did want something that was completely matte, but this is fine. Okay, now I'm gonna set everything in place. I'm using the NYX Matte Finish Spray. And I'm just gonna give myself a generous mist of this all over my face. Moving on to mascara. I have a whole bunch of mascaras, but I think the most natural looking one that I have is the Maybelline Total Temptation mascara. This one makes your lashes look nice and fluffy and soft. So this is the one that I'm using today. All right, I'm gonna keep my eyes squinted for a little bit, so I can't really look up at the camera just yet, but I'm keeping my eyes squinted so that the mascara on my lower lashes won't touch my under eye area while I'm doing the mascara on my top lashes. And I just got some mascara on my lid, but I feel like that happens every single time I do my makeup, and for me it's not a huge deal because my eyelids are so hooded that when I look straight up, like my eyelid is basically covering where the mascara is anyway. If you don't have hooded lids and you do get mascara on your lid, you just want to let it sit for a little bit and let it dry, and then when the mascara dries you can just flick it off. But if you try to remove it before it completely sets, it's gonna smudge on your under eye area. I mean on your eyelid. And for a natural look, I would definitely go with a nude lip. So my favorite nude lip combo is the Wet n Wild Color Icon Lip Pencil, and this one is in the color Chestnut. It's definitely not like the Chestnut from MAC. This one has more of like a red tone to it. So I'm going to use this to line my lips. And then I like to rub my lips together to try and smudge out the liner a little bit. And then I'm going in with e.l.f. matte lip color, and this is the color Praline. So you can definitely stop right here for your lips, but I'm gonna add just a little bit of sheen to it. I'm using the Kathleen Lights by ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip. This is in the color Moonchild. My favorite lip gloss is actually the Fenty one, but I feel like it's a little more shiny than this one, and I just want like a very subtle shine on my lips today. Okay, so that's it. We're done. This is my natural makeup look. I hope you guys really like it. I hope you like the way that it came out, and I hope that you picked up some tips from this video. If you did find it helpful, I hope that you will consider subscribing, and you can also connect with me on other social media networks. I am at PatrickStarrr Philly on all social media networks, but I'm definitely most active on Twitter, so consider joining me over there too. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I definitely hope that you will come back for the next one. Until then, take care. Bye.